What's going on, everybody? American Football Network here with another video today, and today we're bringing you guys our first game preview prediction of the season. We got Clemson versus Georgia, Week 1. But before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Help me reach that goal of 1,400 subscribers by the end of August. Check out the description for links to our shop, podcast, website, patron page, and the College Football Roundup channel. Today we got a special guest with us. We got Adam. How you doing today, man?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Doing good. So go ahead and let everybody know kind of what you do and where they can find you at.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's Adam. I'm one of the co-hosts for Southern Rivals Football Show. We're on Twitter or X, wherever you prefer to call it, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify right now. I got a co-host of mine, my buddy Harrison. He's the South Carolina fan who kind of represents that fan base in our show, both Citadel grads, so we do a lot of SoCon coverage as well. But happy to be here today talking a little bit of Clemson football.
That's right. So make sure you guys go and check him out over there. I'll have his links posted at the top of the description and pinned in the comment section for you guys. So check that out. But today we're talking Clemson, Georgia, Week 1. The spread on this game is Georgia minus 13.5. The over-under sitting at 49.5. This will be the 12 o'clock game on ABC. You look at this Clemson team coming off a bit of a disappointing season last year. They finished strong but started out slow. You look at them, finished 9-4 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. Wasn't very good, but ended the season on a 5-game win streak. So that was nice to see. What were your thoughts just on the Tigers last year, and what do you expect of them coming into this season?
I think last year, obviously, just a horrendous start in Durham. We won. I think what kind of ended up coming to light later on was that Clemson football team took Duke way too lightly. I mean, they really underestimated them, and I think kind of were expected going to Durham and kind of walk out with a dub right off the bus. Obviously, they got a reality check and had a real tough first, 8 weeks of the season, man. They could not find their identity, I thought, offensively. And obviously, with Will Shipley and the way he kind of had an up and down year, and then the offense, Antonio Williams, Adam Randall were out a good bit. That's when Phil Maffa really kind of showed off, I think, the second half of the season. And Clemson began to find their offensive identity in him, which was good to see, especially in that bowl game in the Gator Bowl, and then seeing the hurry-up offense flourish. And so I'm hoping this year with Matt Luke, a humongous addition to the staff for the offensive line that definitely needed a revamping and a healthy wide receiver core. I think this offense can really turn the page with year 2 under Garrett Riley and especially with Cade with his year 2 under the same system.
I agree. Matt Luke, huge addition to this team. I expect the offensive line to be better. When you look at the receivers, that was another group of struggle from last year. I think this year the receivers are probably the best and the deepest group we've had since that last year with Trevor. And you look at them, the biggest thing with that receiver room, they're all talented. They're all very good receivers. The biggest thing with that is just health. And can they stay healthy? Particularly, like you mentioned, Antonio Williams, dude missed. He played in the Florida State game a little bit, and then we didn't see him again to the bowl game. So that was a huge loss. And I think, if you're just a casual watcher, you watch this game, you see Cade Klubnik last season, you don't see much improvements really throughout the season. But if you really watch, you could see the stats didn't necessarily improve, but the decision-making, just the plays he was making, he improved over next season. I expect him to take another step this year, and that's really what this team comes down to. The defense is going to be top 10. The offensive line's improved. The receivers have improved. The running back room is great. It all comes down to Cade Klubnik and how he plays. Now we flip the page in the game just a little bit over to the Georgia Bulldogs and what they come in to this season bringing in. They got obviously probably one of the most talented, if not the most talented roster in the country. They got dogs all over the field on defense. Offense, they lack a little bit in the playmaker position at wide receiver, especially with Ra Thomas being kicked off the team earlier this year. But still have some threats. You got Oscar Delp at tight end. He's going to be tough to cover. Dominic Lovett in the slot. He really exploded last year for him. They bring in Trevor Etienne. What are your thoughts on this Georgia team, and what do you expect out of them and just what they'll look like this upcoming season?
There's not going to be much of a drop-off with them again this year. They're just reloading, and that's how they have been the last 4 to 5 years. What I am curious to see, though, is how Carson Beck is able to kind of be the front horse in this offense now. You know, the last couple of years, especially last year, I thought Brock Bowers was someone they leaned into extremely heavily. And it showed in big games when they had to come from behind, i.e. Auburn was a big one. And I think a lot of people are questioning if Carson Beck is really just kind of that elite quarterback status. And I think we're going to find out. I think this year, and pretty early on, without the weapons of Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, especially now with this first game with Trevor Etienne supposedly possibly being suspended, Roderick Robinson, who is going to be out, had his surgery on his foot, or his toe rather. And I believe it's going to be down to the third and fourth strings in the running back room, at least for this Clemson game. And then, obviously, as you said, with Rod Thomas being dismissed, someone who Georgia fans were really looking forward to seeing being a playmaker. Carson Beck, he's going to have to show something, I think, early on. That's what's going to be telling for Georgia's season.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's gonna have to step up more than I think any Georgia quarterback over these last 3 or 4 years has had to. Just because the lack of the solidified weapons that those guys have had, like you said, no Brock Bowers, Rod Thomas gone, especially if Etienne is out. Suspended week 1, that would really hurt. And you look at both of these teams' schedule, both of them have a pretty tough first half, and they're going to have to start out pretty quick. Obviously, they play each other week 1. You look at Clemson in the first 5 weeks, they play Georgia, NC State, and at Florida State. You look for Georgia in the first 7 weeks, they get Clemson, at Kentucky, at Alabama, and at Texas. So, that Kentucky game could be a potential trap game for them, following up with Alabama the next week after a bye game. So, this will be an interesting start to the season for both these teams, particularly Clemson having to come out fast. But when you look at the series history between these two, it hasn't been very favorable to Clemson at all. Georgia leads the all-time series 43, 18, and 4. They split a home-and-home series back in 2013 and 14, both teams winning their home games. Then UGA won the most recent matchup in 2021, 10-3, won that game on a pick 6 in the first half. So hopefully the series will go in a little bit more favor for Clemson this year than it has in the last, 100 years of history. But let's go ahead and jump into the keys to the game. So what is your first key to the game for the Tigers in this matchup?
Mine has got to be the turnover battle. I mean, that's something that Dabo stressed a ton last year. It killed them against Duke and in other games as well. They've got to win the turnover battle. And Georgia's such a good football team, you cannot give them gifts. I think Clemson can probably get away with one turnover as long as they get one back themselves. But if they lose the turnover battle, it's going to be, I think, a very, very steep hill for them to climb to get out of.
I agree 100% with you. That was my first key to the game. I look at my notes. I have it in all caps, protect the football. Because this Georgia team, you got a veteran leader in Carson Beck. You got experience all over the field. Like you said, I think you can get away with one because if you get a turnover at all against Georgia, you're only getting one of them. Carson Beck isn't coming out throwing 3 interceptions. You're getting one at most. So you have to take care of that football. I think they can survive off of one turnover, even if they don't get one back, just because when you look at the defense, it obviously depends on the type of turnover. If it's a pick 6 like it was in the last game, maybe not. But, if you throw an interception in Georgia's side of the field, the defense can hold them and make them punt the ball back to you. But you have to take care of that football. No fumbling down at the 1-yard line like we saw numerous times last year. You got to hold on to it. Got to hold on to the football. So moving on, what is key number 2 for a Clemson win in this matchup?
Got to have big plays. I mean, that's something that I think Clemson especially struggled with in the first 8 weeks of the season, and that's because of injuries, really, is you got to have some downfield shots. And Tyler Brown ended up emerging as a freshman as that one guy that was able to make big plays for Clemson. And so that's why I'm hoping with at least this Georgia opener, with Antonio Williams and Adam Randall, and even what I'm hearing out of Bryant Briscoe Jr., that we were able to take some shots downfield. You can only do the bubble screens and the RPOs so much. You got, against Georgia, at some point, you got to roll the dice. You got to take shots, be a little bit aggressive. So I think if Clemson can find a couple of good big plays to make and try to get some momentum swung in their favor or find some guys to get hot, that will help their chances greatly.
I agree completely with you. And my second key to the game kind of bounces off of that one. Mine is establish a run game because, like you said, I think that will help open up those big explosive plays down the field. I think that this game is going to be one that is won in the trenches. And if you can't establish a run game, you're going to have a hard time against this Georgia defense. They're too talented to be one-dimensional against them. and just trying to throw the football around. And not only that, I don't trust Cade enough to throw the ball 40 times in this game. I think you need Moffa to hit 100 yards on the ground, maybe a touchdown or two in there. I think you're going to have to run the football. And I think with this offensive line, from what I've heard, from what we know Matt Luke has done in the past with, I think he was actually at Georgia before he retired and then came to Clemson. He gets that offensive line ready. And so if they can get some push up front and establish a run game, I think kind of bouncing with yours, I think that'll help create those explosive plays down the field. And that's something you're going to need to get the win in this game. So key number 3, what do you have there?
Third down efficiency. That's something that Clemson at times struggled with last year. You see the 2021 game with Georgia, they went 5 for 16 on third downs. You got to stay on the field. You got to stay on the field. You got to be able to give your defense a breather at least, because against this Georgia offense, the defense is going to be at full force the whole entire time. And if Clemson's offense is going out there having 3 and outs back-to-back times, it's going to lean on you. And Georgia's going to sense that, and they're going to lean on that defensive line. So I think if Clemson can shoot to be about that 75% range on third downs, I think that will greatly help their chances to try to pull off the, if you want to call it, the upset.
Oh yeah, most definitely. You gotta keep your defense fresh, because that's the strong point of your team. You got to be efficient. For me, the third key of the game for me is to get pressure with your defensive line. It would be huge in this football game if Clemson can rush for and get pressure and tackles for loss and be able to drop the rest of the guys back off into coverage instead of having to bring those blitz packages. That was something we saw last year Clemson struggled with was sacks. I believe they ended the season with, I think it was 34. Somewhere around in there, 34 sacks, 38 sacks, something like that. I think it was the first time since Brent Venables was hired we didn't hit 40 sacks in a season. We didn't get a whole lot of pressure, weren't very efficient when rushing the passer and bringing the blitz. I think it would be huge if you don't have to bring guys like Wade Woodaz, Barrett Carter, Sammy Brown down into the box to rush the passer if you're getting the pressure from that D-line. And I'm excited to see a guy like Peter Woods out on the defensive end. See what he can do at 290, getting around the edge. TJ Parker returning. He's a dog out there. So it's going to be fun to watch. And another thing to look to when we're talking about the blitzes, we lost our best blitz and linebacker from the last 2 seasons in Trotter. I think he was tied for the most for the team lead on sacks both years. So I got to replace that because you're not going to be able to get pressure every single play with 4 guys. You're going to have to bring a blitz sometimes. So we're going to need a linebacker to step up and get some pressure on Carson Beck, make him uncomfortable, hit him hard a few times, knock him down. So, I think if we can do those 3 things, we have a really good shot at winning this football game. You got any other just thoughts or opinions on this game going into Saturday? What are you feeling in your head? Just any thoughts on it?
I think the best way to describe how I feel is just cautiously optimistic. I think one thing when I'm looking at just Clemson's fall camp compared to last year's fall camp, and if you read the media interviews and all of that and the articles coming out between the players, I felt like last year the Clemson players were, I thought, maybe a little cocky. I thought they were maybe a little too much sunshine pumping. I think a little bit in the preseason, and it came back to bottom. Again, week 1 against Duke. But I felt like this year they've done a very good job of kind of staying low key, knowing they got to handle business and knowing they've got some stuff to prove. And with this 12-team playoff, this is a great opportunity to maybe show the nation that Clemson is, in fact, coming back.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. I think most Clemson fans kind of have that mindset of cautiously optimistic. Of course, you got the homers who think we're going to come out and win by 40. You also have the people who we'll see if they're really fans or not. They think we'll come out and lose by 40. But I think for the most part, most people are, kind of cautiously optimistic. They have some hope. Part of that's because it's week 1, football's back. Part of it's because we got a good team, we got a good shot. I think most Clemson fans would be happy if we come out, offense looks solid, we look like we know what we're doing, and we cover the spread. I think that would make most people happy. I don't think we need a win. I don't think we need a win, obviously, with the 12-team playoff. I don't think either team really does. I think Georgia more so than Clemson just because the SEC is a little bit tougher. So they might need the win a little bit more than Clemson does, because Clemson could still, I mean, honestly, Clemson could go 8-4, win the ACC, and be in, just depending on how it lays out. Georgia can't go do that. So I think most people are going to be happy if we cover the spread. I personally think we will cover the spread. I don't know if we win, but I don't think we'll lose by 14.
No.
Spread, I think, sits at 13.5. So that leads us into, what is your score prediction for this game? How do you see this one playing out Saturday?
I hate to say this because, again, as a Clemson fan, but just being realistic, I think Clemson covers the spread. I think that's a lock of them at plus 13.5. I think Georgia's going to end up with some sort of late surge of some sort. I think they're going to win this game 21-17. I hope Clemson wins. I would love for Clemson to go in there and win, but realistically speaking, I think it's going to be very similar to that battle a few years ago in Charlotte. There's going to be some more points in this one, I think, and that's mainly due to this year we got Cade Klubnik instead of J.U., who was a starting quarterback a few years ago, and then obviously the new weapons out of Georgia. So I'm going to say, and for as much as it pains me to say this, I think Georgia probably ends up winning this game 21-17.
I agree. As a Clemson fan, I want to pick my team to win, but I don't feel we're not regardless of what happens, Clemson is not the better team, the more talented team in this football game. Georgia is. It's just about, can we take advantage of their weaknesses and play our strengths to those better than they can. So I have a similar score to you. I have Georgia winning this one 24-20. Only way I see Georgia covering the spread is if Clemson comes out and turns the ball over 3 or 4 times. And just completely falls apart offensively, which after last year, can't say that that's impossible to happen. Sure don't see it as likely, but it's one thing that could. But I don't see Georgia covering the spread of 14 points. I do think it'll be more scoring than the last matchup. The last matchup, both teams offensively only got a field goal. I do see more scoring in this one. Part of what you said, I just think the offenses, I think the defenses are about the same, but I think the offensive just have better weapons on both sides of the field. So I think this is going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game for both teams, but I agree. I think somewhere in that fourth quarter, kind of later in the game, Georgia's going to get some kind of surge. Clemson will be a little worn out, and I think that's when Georgia's going to take advantage, and they're going to be able to put us away and win the football game. But going to be a great game. I'm excited for it. Win or lose, I'm just glad Clemson football is back. And I'm sure pretty much everybody is.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be a home game for Georgia, so I'm curious to know also to the turnout of Clemson fans what that ratio is going to be as well.
I am too. To see how many Clemson fans traveled down there. I expect there to be a lot of them. A pretty good bit, probably more outside the stadium than inside the stadium, from what you would expect, because those tickets are pretty expensive. I'm sure a lot of people will be down there just for tailgating. But, so that's going to wrap up today's video. Adam, man, appreciate you coming on with us. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having us.
Yes, sir. So make sure you guys go and check him out over there. I'll have his links down in the description and in the comment section. We appreciate everybody.